The QAnon movement appears to be gaining a lot of followers. Can you talk about what you think about that and what you have to say to people who are following this movement right now?
Well, I don't know much about the movement other than I understand they like me very much, which I appreciate.
QAnon and then President Trump, a love affair in the making back in 2020. And now the Q folks have a new conspiracy theory suggesting Trump will be reinstated as president come August. Yeah, this August, even sparking concerns at the Department of Homeland Security over potential for violence around that time. We can laugh about QAnon, but it's serious stuff. And I read something the other day that perfectly captured a moment I can't stop thinking about. It was the plan to save the world. On January the 6th, 2021, an armed mob of Donald Trump's supporters accomplished what no Confederate soldier, Nazi, stormtrooper, or al-Qaeda jihadist had ever managed to do. They sacked the US Capitol building. Many were believers in the cultish conspiracy theory called QAnon. Everywhere you look during the frenzy, you could find symbols of QAnon iconography, rioters busting through Capitol defenses and brawling with officers, images of the Q shaman clad in furs, face paint, and a horned helmet were reproduced everywhere in the flood of media that covered the events. QAnon believers that expressed full-throated belief in QAnon and a willingness to die for President Trump right until the moment they did. What I just read was a chilling excerpt from the new book, The Storm is Upon Us, How QAnon Became a Movement, Cult, and Conspiracy Theory of Everything. The author, Mike Rothschild, offers a sobering look at the origins of the QAnon movement and how it's gripped right-wing American politics. I spoke to him earlier about his new book. Mike Rothschild, thanks so much for joining us on the show. We've heard so much about QAnon in the last couple of years. What is new about them in your book? What are we learning that we didn't know before?
Well, one of the things that I learned in the book that I really just put together for the first time is that all of the crimes, the major crimes committed by QAnon believers, the couple of murders, the child kidnappings, the Hoover Dam standoff, these weren't people who were kind of lashing out or taking matters into their own hands. These were people who really thought that they were in danger, or someone they loved was in danger, or America was in danger. These were crimes with a motivation. And you can talk about mental illness, and obviously I haven't diagnosed any of these people. A couple of the murders were committed by people who were later found not capable of standing trial. But what we have to realize with QAnon is that these people get into this world and they really believe that they're fighting a war. This isn't just some crazy internet thing. This isn't just idle conspiracy theory spreading. This is a war for these people, and they are on the front lines.
Yes. I'm so glad you opened by framing it in that way, because I think too often, and I include myself here, when we discuss QAnon, we get distracted by the craziness of it, by the sheer insanity of it. We look at the fun stories like, were the cicadas on Joe Biden's shoulder? Was that QAnon messaging about that? They have a theory about the cicadas, I know. But actually, as you point out, it's a very serious issue. It leads to law enforcement problems, death. As you point out, they see themselves in a war. The FBI, Mike, seized QAnon as a domestic terrorism threat. Talk about that, about how it actually manifests itself. You mentioned the Hoover Dam incident, if you want to talk about that. Is there any specific examples where you say this is one of the most dangerous examples of QAnon in action in the real world, outside of internet chat forums?
Sure. I think the Hoover Dam incident is a great example of this. This was summer of 2018. This was a Marine veteran who became convinced because of Q drops that there was a secret, unredacted Inspector General report that would blow open all of the corruption and all of the evil in the deep state that Donald Trump was trying to destroy, but was constantly being sidetracked. So he got in his homemade armored vehicle, had multiple firearms, flashbang grenades, and 900 rounds of ammunition, and drove to Hoover Dam and stopped on a bridge just outside the dam and held up a sign that said, "Release the OIG report." That is straight from a Q drop. This guy then went on a police chase. He had his tires shot out. It is a miracle no one was killed in this incident.
Indeed. You are someone who is an expert on conspiracy theories. You've studied them long before QAnon came along. Thing is, most conspiracy theories don't go mainstream. Like 9/11 truthers didn't take over the Democratic Party. The deniers of the moon landings didn't run for president. Are you surprised at how mainstream QAnon now is on the right, from members of Congress to a former national security advisor to the Texas GOP using a QAnon mantra as its official slogan?
Yeah, when I started looking into this in January 2018, I never could have imagined that this would become GOP orthodoxy, that you would have the highest levels of one of America's major parties, and they won't say who the president is. They literally will not answer the question of who is the president. And this is stuff that started with QAnon. You had Q making a year's worth of drops that posted Joe Biden as decrepit, as incompetent, as hidden in a basement, propped up by foreign money and an evil deep state. And if Joe Biden won the election, that meant the election was fraudulent. And, well, Joe Biden won the election. And this massive army of people buoyed by these conspiracy theories then thought, well, Joe Biden is not the real president. This is fraud. And everything in the Q movement has pointed towards that since then.
They think Donald Trump's coming back in August, even though he's busy doing a paid speaking tour with Bill O'Reilly in December, which doesn't quite fit the conspiracy. Yoga teacher Laura Schwartz, Mike, released an op-ed in the LA Times on how California's yoga and wellness community has a QAnon problem. She wrote, quote, "A world that has long embraced love, light, and acceptance is now making room for something else. QAnon." You'd think that QAnon was the kind of conspiracy you picked up at a Trump rally, but it's reaching into some surprising places in mainstream and seemingly apolitical American life, isn't it?
Yeah, you have this enmeshment in QAnon with all of these different communities. And a lot of this really started during the pandemic, where you had the entire world suddenly locked down by this great change event. And nobody really knew what to make of it, and it was changing by the day. And events like that are a petri dish for conspiracy theories. And one of the things that you had was this backlash against science, against expertise, against doctors, researchers. People looked at this virus and they thought that there was no way that this could have happened naturally. There has to be some human-made component of it, either starting it or spreading it. So you had people on the left going to anti-5G Facebook groups, anti-vaccine Facebook groups, anti-Bill Gates Facebook groups. And a lot of these were people who would never vote for Donald Trump, would never call themselves Republicans. But they got sucked into it through this distrust of science and this need for answers.
Yes. And again, just a reminder, this is some seriously bonkers and dangerous stuff. A new poll released last month shows that 15% of Americans, millions of Americans, believe the sweeping QAnon allegation that the government, media, and financial worlds in the U.S. are controlled by a group of Satan-worshipping pedophiles who run a global child sex trafficking operation. In your book's 6th chapter, you talk about why people believe in QAnon, writing, "Even when presented with crushing proof that they've been fooled, they still believe, often taking the proof that they're wrong as proof that they're actually right, and are over the target. To do otherwise would be to give in to hopelessness." I mean, how do you combat that then?
It has to be at a very personal level. You know, there is no large-scale de-radicalization. We know that that doesn't work. But what you have to do is you have to go to the people who believe this stuff, and not just QAnon, but any extremism or conspiracy theories or things like that. And you have to decide, first of all, is this a person I want in my life? And if the answer to that is no, you are completely free to walk away from that person. But if that is someone who really is meaningful to you, what you want to do is present yourself as a safe person, someone that they can talk about non-political things, shared experiences, happy memories, things like that, and go from there. Make yourself a safe harbor.
Interesting. I'm not sure whether I'd be able to pull that off, to be honest, but I appreciate the people who do. One last quick question for you, Mike. We're out of time, but what has it been like for you covering QAnon, writing a book about QAnon? I mean, what do they make of you? Do you get harassed? Do they think you're part of the conspiracy?
Well, my last name, Rothschild, and I'm not related to the banking family, does me no favor. But
I didn't even think of that. Oh, my God.
Yep. But for me, I get much less trolling or harassment than any woman or person of color in any forward-facing job gets. And I realized,
Good point. And I hadn't spotted the name thing. Oh, my God. It all makes sense now, the conspiracy. Mike Rothschild, thanks so much for joining us. Again, the book is The Storm is Upon Us, How QAnon Became a Movement, Cult, and Conspiracy Theory of Everything. Be sure to pick it up. Hi, I'm Mehdi Hasan. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more of the Mehdi Hasan Show by clicking on any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thank you for watching.